What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel where we learn, do, and talk about photography until we are sick of it. And today I've got a very fascinating treat because the recently released Canon EOS R8, which is an introductory price full frame camera, we're gonna go test it out in the landscape today. So this is an exciting camera for me because this could be your first full frame camera. We're gonna test it out here at Hocking Hills State Park today. This is a park in south central Ohio that is renowned throughout the Midwest for its waterfalls, and after several days of rain, you can probably hear that the waterfalls are flowing. The groundskeepers are working furiously to get the mowing cut up, so great conditions probably for a good flow in the falls. We'll hike out and see how the R8 does in the landscape. Camera out of the bag. This is the R8 so that I can carry it around and do some sort of handheld shots while I'm walking around, which is a type of landscape photography that I enjoy, especially if I'm trying to stay on the move and I don't want to fluff with getting out the tripod. And it's brought to mind some of the compromises involved with this camera, so I'll have a lot of praise coming up with the camera, sample images and all of that, but it just seemed like a good time to discuss the difference between this camera and a camera you might spend a little more money on, and some of the compromises that put this camera at the $1,500 price point. So for example, as I'm walking here along the trail, I'm encountering lots of drips from the overhangs, water dripping onto me, my equipment, my camera. I frequently do that kind of landscape photography. If you're more of a fair weather photographer, this may not be an issue, but the R8 has only the very minimal drip and dust resistance seals in the camera, so I'm very hesitant to take it out, and I won't dismount the lens right now, but you'll also notice that if you do take the lens off, the bare sensor is exposed. In fact, there is no fully mechanical shutter mechanism in the camera, so that's a downside that's worth pointing out, but the shutter mechanism then is not available to come down and cover the camera sensor like you will find that it does in the higher end cameras to protect it from incidental dust. So in general, I would characterize this as a more dainty or delicate or light use camera. The build quality is also somewhat more plasticky and not quite as robust as you would find in the higher end cameras in the Canon lineup. So if you're like me and you prefer to carry your kit just in a standard hiking backpack as opposed to a specialized camera bag, you might not find that this camera build is quite rugged enough for that purpose. The camera has a smaller battery than the standard, the other full frame Canon cameras. Has the LP17 battery that you find in the Rebel series cameras, the M6 Mark II, as opposed to the LP-E6N or NH batteries that the other Canon mirrorless full frame cameras use. So there are some limitations therefore with the battery life, and also you'll find that the SD card, there's only one card slot, and that is accessed through the battery door as opposed to a side access point, right? So that can be an inconvenience if you need to change the memory card while working on a tripod. And speaking of working on a tripod, the point that brought me into this part of the discussion was there is no image stabilizer in the camera. So when you are doing handheld photography, like I'm doing today, especially in dark areas, cloudy situations, and shaded areas, you'll find that you're working at higher ISOs. That just gets the negatives out of the way. I think it's going to be mostly roses from here on out. Well, that was frustrating. I got rained out. I've got like 10 drops of rain on each glasses lens, and that's from the whole walk back from the site. But one of the buttons on the R8 stopped working, so that was a little bit frustrating. I was hoping that it's advertised as having a modicum of water sealing, and so I've never had a camera, even a non-weather shield camera, to fail with that little exposure to water. So I guess that's why we do the test. That's not to say that it's a terrible camera. It just has, it requires delicate treatment, and it's not for every situation. I will resume testing it here just in a second, because hopefully the weather clears up. It was not forecast to be this way. All right, we've got a glimpse of sunshine here, so that's very encouraging. I've actually been out hiking around for the last several hours in the rain without the cameras, and I had a great time. I highly recommend this location. I hope you appreciate that it would have been easy for me to omit that from the video to try to sell you the R8 through like my affiliate links. And I do have affiliate links down below, so I hope you appreciate. Maybe drop me a thumbs up for giving you an honest and unbiased review. The point is not to sell you the R8, is to try to help you figure out which Canon camera is best suited for your photographic purposes at the $1,500 price point. And I actually have all of them. So I've got the EOS R, the EOS R7, and the EOS R8. I'm going to go down to the waterfall now and take sample images with all of them. And then afterwards, we'll get them back in the computer and assess them based on image quality, which is another important consideration to take into account when you're deciding which camera is best for you. And then hopefully we'll have a chance also to talk about the handling and other camera capabilities, because that is another distinguishing characteristic between the three models. Okay, I'm set up for test shots now. I'm actually very satisfied, despite the fact that you can see I'm up against the side of a creek and the compositional opportunities are somewhat limited. Very happy to have been able to frame up the waterfall underneath this covered bridge. You'll see when I pull this out of 16:9, we just got the top of the bridge in there and a little bit of the background, excluding the sky. I've got this polarized, I think a really pleasant shot. Before the light leaves us, I will move on to test shots, but I just thought it was worth briefly remarking on some of the differentiating features between the R8 and really, I guess, the other cameras in its price class, but particularly the general proposition of the entry-level full-frame camera. So I remember when I bought my first full-frame camera, I was a sailor celebrating leave in Hong Kong. And me and my buddy PJ, we were shacked up there, and he was a fellow camera nerd, and we both decided, hey, we're seeing lots of the world, we're having great experiences. It's probably really worth investing in some nice cameras to document that. Like, we both had crop sensor cameras at the time. We went into a place called SimCity, which you should just Google. It is like the camera mecca of planet Earth. And PJ picked himself up a nice used Nikon D750, and I got the brand new Canon 6D Mark II. And I probably paid about $2,000 for that camera, and it was probably half as capable as this new Canon R8, and even though the R8 costs $500 less. So generally, like, the entry-level full-frame camera is what I think of as like the landscape photographer's paradise, because it gets you into all the benefits of a full-frame sensor, like the expanded field of view and the enhanced dynamic range and low light capabilities. But typically it's compromised in a sense that it's not like a fast shooting camera. And when you go to moving subjects like sports or wildlife, or even sometimes just like regular moving human speed subjects, the cameras can be frustratingly slow, both in like the autofocus tracking as well as the frame rates of the camera, the burst frame rates. And that's been true for as long as entry-level full-frame digital cameras have existed in my lifetime, through all the dozens of iterations of that proposition until the Canon R8. And so the R8 has got 40 frames per second burst electronic shooting, 4K 60 uncropped 10-bit video. It also has the Canon's state-of-the-art autofocus system. And so while I think we have discovered there are some limitations in the way the camera can be used, for the person getting into full-frame photography who maybe has landscape photography as a secondary interest or a side interest, but needs the camera to be generally useful outside of that use case, the R8 is probably the first camera that I think you could really recommend for that purpose. In fact, typically when people will come to me asking for a recommendation on a full-frame camera, I would say don't buy a new one at the entry level. get a used one at a higher level because they're typically more capable cameras. We're gonna run through test shots now and see how the image looks between the R8, the EOS R, and the R7. I'm going to go through that process quickly so that I can get the light matched about as closely as possible. So I'll just check in after I finish making the photographs, but I just want to introduce you to the composition, and we'll show you the test shots right after I capture it. If you're a photographer who's invested in the Canon ecosystem of lenses and accessories, the chances are one of these $1,500 cameras is going to be the one to level up your photography game. To expand your creative capabilities by expanding the field of view, or maybe giving you faster burst rates, better shooting, and a more generally practical camera. So which one is right for you? If you're only interested in landscapes, the original EOS R, I frequently tell people, is probably one of the best for the price that's specially focused towards that, because unlike the R8, it does have a fairly rugged body with decent weather sealing that I've tested up to a few hours in heavy downpour to failure, but not like instant failure with a bit of incidental moisture. The big battery, the side-loading door, for just landscapes, this is like one of the best deals you can get in Canon. If you need a more generally practical camera and you want to stay with full frame and you think you can avoid the elements, the features that we mentioned in the R8 make it a much more useful camera, and you'll find that you can take it to weddings and ball games and sporting events, and you know, the whole everything. It's ready for everything in your life, but except apparently the occasional storm. The Canon R7, which is the camera recording me now, expands the professionality of that feature set even further with an even more rugged and better weather sealed body, dual card slots, in-body image stabilization, like essentially the full professional feature set for the exact same price, and the limitation there is the crop sensor. So hopefully something in there is useful with addition to the sample gallery, and we'll compare all of the images from the three cameras side by side in the next video. So I've captured photos at lots of different ISOs. We'll push and pull the shadows in this high dynamic range scene, right? All those different things that you would use a camera for in landscape photography. We're gonna put the image files from the three cameras through that test in the next video, and I also have a specialized video coming up to compare the video quality. So if you're especially interested in quality for stills or video, be sure you're subscribed so you can see the full testing regimen of the three cameras. But until then, you guys keep an eye out and a foot forward. Hopefully something here is useful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.